Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Darshan Shah, CEO of Next Health, and I'm here today with Kevin Peek, the president of Next Health, for the Forefront podcast. And we want to keep you on the forefront of everything in health and wellness. And we have an esteemed guest here today, Sage Dammers, who is the co-founder and CEO of Addictive Wellness, which are some of my favorite chocolates that, every night I have a piece.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you so much for having me. And I'm so happy to hear you've been enjoying the chocolates.
Yeah, they're fantastic. Now, Sage, what's incredible about you is because at your talk at Next Health, you are just an incredible wealth of knowledge in everything to do with hormones and herbs. And I'm so curious how you came about all this knowledge. So could you tell us a little bit about you and like kind of your history and where you started getting into health and wellness?
Absolutely. So I was growing up here in Southern California, and I was raised as a vegetarian, but not a healthy one by any means, as you and I were chatting about the other day. So it was kind of like 5 nights a week of basmati rice and tofu, and then like one night of pizza and one night of pancakes or something like that. So it wasn't the best. It was a lot better than maybe having McDonald's, and my parents certainly had an understanding of organic is better than conventional and things of that nature. But it was a lot of carbs, a lot of sugar, and I kind of knew growing up that my health and well-being and vitality were not the ultimate that they could be. I sensed there's got to be a higher level than this. And when I was 18, 19, there was a local guy in the community who was super fit, really healthy, and full of vitality. And he had this product line that was kind of a mix of hemp protein and spirulina and chlorella, some other Western herbs like milk thistle and things like that. And I wanted what he had. I wanted to have that kind of energy and health. And he was like in his 40s and looked like he was 30. And I was interested in longevity. So I said, let me experience some of this. And I didn't know what I was doing. So I just kind of made these smoothies with this mix and some Tropicana orange juice and some frozen fruit every day. And I started having it every day. And before you know it, I started having this amazing mental clarity. I'd never experienced this before, just feeling incredible, amazing energy, could just go surf for like 4, 5, 6 hours. And this was a whole new level that kind of what I sensed was possible, but never experienced. And this just totally blew my mind and opened me up to the idea that if this was out there all along and I didn't know about it, what else have I been missing out on? So that shot me down like a 10 plus year rabbit hole of learning more about raw foods and superfoods and Chinese and Ayurvedic herbal systems and different health practices and hormones and neurotransmitters and everything in this whole genre. And the more I learned, the more I would incorporate into my own life, the better I would feel, the more I would be motivated to go learn more. And this benevolent cycle just kind of kept spinning around and around. And things continued to get better. I spent time around people who knew a lot more than I did and just soaked up the information and traveled around the world. And eventually, actually quite early on in the journey, I learned how to make raw chocolate, which to me was so exciting because for me, I will eat or drink anything. If it's good for me, I don't care what it tastes like. It can be pure shilajit, which is a mineral pitch that's secreted out of the Himalayas. And it tastes horrible, but it's so good for you. I love it. But for most people, if it doesn't taste good, they're not going to touch it. So I realized that if I'm going to be able to share my passion for this and the benefits with other people, I'm going to have to figure out a way to get it into them and make it taste good. And it has to taste better than the stuff that's bad for you. So I realized chocolate is such a great gateway health food because it's not only the highest natural source of antioxidants, highest natural source of magnesium, highest natural source of chromium, very high in zinc and iron, but it also has these bliss chemicals in it like serotonin and anandamide and phenylethylamine, the love bliss chemical. And then it also acts as a great delivery system for the greatest herbs in the world because it's a vasodilator, so it drives the herbs deeper into your system. And it's also somewhat of an MAO inhibitor, so it allows the herbs to stay in your system and keep working for longer than they naturally would. And then if you can go the next step further even and make it sugar-free so it's not spiking people's blood sugar and causing this, blood sugar roller coaster, and they can stay in ketosis if they're into the kind of like the ketogenic diet as so many people are thriving on these days, it can support their health on every level. So eventually that became the company that we have now, and we have, various other products and elixirs and individual herbs, but that was kind of the cornerstone of it.
That's an amazing story. I mean, and just to be clear, like the chocolate that you're talking about is not the Hershey's chocolate up on the shelves in the CVS, right? This is like
Right. So we use exclusively heirloom Aruba Nacional cacao beans. And this is a heirloom variety of cacao that represents less than 1% of the total production of cacao. It's the elite of the elite. Now you have normal cacao. The most common kind is a variety called CCN51. And this is a hybridized cacao bean that was created in the 70s to be able to withstand a lot of the diseases that cacao is susceptible to. But it is a small tree and grows only in like an open field, needs lots of like care and pesticides and things like that. And it produces 4 times the amount that a normal cacao tree would. So from a pure business standpoint with zero care for health or ethics, it's great. But it's cacao-wise, the quality is low, the taste is not there, the minerals are not there, you're monocropping. Whereas what we have grows only in an intact rainforest environment, in volcanic soil, and you're essentially incentivizing the local people to take care of the rainforest and be good custodians of the land, because that's how they're able to make money, because the cacao can still grow in the rainforest there. So it's just such a win all around. And you can only get as many minerals in a food as there are pre-existing in the soil. If the soil has been overworked, there's not going to be a lot of minerals getting into the food. If you're growing in this mineral-rich volcanic soil that has minerals that have been brought up from deep within the earth, you're going to have something pretty different.
Wow. That's amazing. It makes me want to eat as much of that as possible. Can you tell us a little bit about the science of the chocolate? Because the other day, we actually had together some 100% cacao chocolate that is just so bitter, it was hard to eat. And, I think we have this kind of misconception of what chocolate is because of what we've been eating our whole lives, which is this sweet chocolate that tastes good that people are addicted to and they love to eat, but that's really not healthy for you. I mean, you've created this incredibly healthy superfood chocolate. Where's the kind of the balance and the variety of kind of on the chocolate scale?
Right. So some people do enjoy a pure 100% cacao. You have to have a palate that is cultivated into the ability to enjoy those bitter flavors. You can liken it to having like wine or for some people beer or things like that, where somebody tastes like a red wine for the first time and it just like they're not necessarily enjoying it, right? When you're young and you just like taste one like whatever, but your tongue becomes desensitized to some of those harsher flavors, and you gain the ability to taste the subtle flavors underneath. And I've actually made a video on YouTube on how to do a very similar thing for chocolate and how to taste chocolate like you would taste a wine almost. And it just creates such a different experience. But anyways, once you're having that dark chocolate for a while and you become desensitized to the bitters, you can taste the subtle flavor notes that are in there, and it becomes a much more profound experience. It's like even when you go outside from being inside on a bright day, suddenly you just see all this bright light and you can't really open your eyes, like, that's so harsh. You stay out there for a little while, your eyes adjust. You can see all the beautiful things. Like you could walk out onto the most perfect beach and your eyes are not adjusted to it, and it's harsh, right? You get used to it. Wow, this is a beautiful beach. But in our chocolate, we wanted to lower the barrier to entry. We wanted to make it perfect for people who aren't necessarily wanting to have 100% pure cacao chocolate. So it's 83%, and we sweeten it just with birch xylitol and a special non-bitter organic stevia. So you still get the sweetness that people really enjoy, so they can have a great psychosensory experience with it, and still get the benefits of this high quality cacao and the herbs that we put into it.
Well, the first time I ate it, I had no idea that it was actually good for you. And I was eating it for
awesome.
at least a week, and I was like, this is the best chocolate I've ever had in my life. My
Wow.
girlfriend brought some home. And then I realized what it was, and that there's all these herbs and mushrooms and everything else in it, and my mind was just blown at what an incredible product this is. So I love that you made this.
Thank you so much. That makes my day to hear that.
Yeah.
I love also that you're choosing chocolate that's sustainably raised and responsibly raised and not in monoculture farms, because that's the problem with all of our food nowadays. It's so devoid of nutrients because we farm the same land over and over again with the same crops. And you've almost made healthy food like lettuce not healthy for you, just like empty calories.
It's nothing like what it used to be.
Exactly.
And it's like if you only eat a limited diet, as many people do, your microbiome suffers. Mm-hmm. When we monocrop the earth, its microbiome suffers, and ours as a result. There's so many problems with the current agricultural model. But one can only hope that things are going to evolve in a better direction.
Exactly. I think as consumers too, if we demand food that's been grown responsibly, more money goes towards that segment of agriculture.
Absolutely. Just look with organic, how the organic supply is skyrocketing because people want it.
Exactly.
It makes such a difference.
Yeah, you vote with your dollars.
Very true.
Absolutely. So let's talk about hormones, and specifically, the Mars versus Venus, the oxytocin versus testosterone. I loved your explanation about this, about why men are men and why women are different. And to tell me a little bit about that.
So hormones are really fascinating to me because they essentially act as master switches that control so many areas of our health. It's like if you have, often people have different symptoms going on, and even with a holistic model or natural treatments, they try to treat the symptoms rather than going upstream to the source, which is often hormonal imbalances, or sometimes it can be nutritional imbalances or things of that nature. But hormonal imbalances are one of the big ones. This is like upstream. And if you are trying to treat the downstream symptoms, you'll often, cover one symptom up, but it will pop its head out in another way. It kind of becomes a game of whack-a-mole, and you're just always stuck in this cycle of treating symptoms. If you go upstream and sort the hormones out, very often the symptoms just disappear. And then you start feeling better than you ever have. And problems you didn't even, maybe some brain fog you didn't even realize you have, or problems in a relationship, or with, women having difficult periods, these problems just go away, and wow, I didn't even realize that was an unusual problem. I just thought that was life, but suddenly it's a lot better. And so when you get your hormones right, a lot of good stuff falls into place. And a lot of that has to do with diet and supplements and nutrition, but a lot of it is also lifestyle. Part of that is how you exercise and psychology, but a lot of it is our interpersonal relations as well, has a huge impact. And anyone who has ever been in a bad relationship and just gotten out of it, but been completely drained and felt like a ghost of their former selves, knows how much an unhealthy relationship and an imbalanced relationship can destroy your hormones. You're taken down. And when we're dealing with hormones, a lot of it also has to do with stress, and that's a key point of this. And these are all kind of influence each other. It'll make a whole lot of sense. When you are producing cortisol, stress hormone, it can save your life. If you were a caveman and you're either threatened by a saber-toothed tiger and need to run, or you're threatened by your neighboring caveman who wants to kick you out of your cave and you need to have some fight or flight to whack him on the head with your club, that cortisol is going to save your life. However, we live in this modern world where there's constant stressors of various kinds that our bodies don't really know how to interpret. Like if you're under stress because you're under the wrong kind of lighting, if you're under stress because just work is always a concern, if you're under stress because driving is weird and you didn't evolve to drive a car necessarily, so it's like driving can just be stressful on its own. All these stressors in our lives, we're constantly producing cortisol. And when you're stressed and producing cortisol, your body is going to prioritize that cortisol production over all the other hormones. Because if it's a life or death situation, your body doesn't care how healthy your skin or your hair is or how your overall energy levels and sleep are. It's not going to produce the hormones for that. It's going to produce what you need to survive right now. Because if let's take the example of a woman who wants to have healthy hormones so that she has a gentle menstrual cycle. If you die because the saber-toothed tiger eats you, you're not going to have another menstrual cycle. That's not your problem anymore, right? So this is like your body has its priorities. So if you want to produce your healthy hormones, you have to figure out what's going to get you out of stress. And actually, healthy hormones can get you out of stress. So it's an interesting cycle. And if it's spinning the wrong way, it goes disaster. But if you can get it spinning the right way, it can be really great. So in these relationships, for women to have low stress and to feel good, you need high oxytocin. For guys, it's not the same. We're different. For guys, we need high testosterone to have low stress and feel good. So for women, how do you get that oxytocin? Oxytocin is the bonding hormone. So it comes from talking about your problems. Women, you come home from a day at work or from wherever you've been, and you don't want solutions to your problems necessarily, not immediately anyways. You want to talk about what happened, what that person said, what you said back, how it made you feel. How do you think they felt about it? How would your boyfriend feel in that situation? And that is all building bonding. And women, evolutionarily, during the hunter-gatherer times, would be harvesting food, perhaps preparing food, taking care of the children, plenty of time to chat with each other and process all these things and bond and have this great empathy for one another. It's fantastic. Now, often we end up in situations where women are looking to their male partner for 100% of their oxytocin production, right? And it's not sustainable for guys. That's why oftentimes in the beginning stages of a relationship, man and woman spend a lot of time together, and the guy feels his energy coming down and down and down and down with time. And then you got to like break away and like, whoa, I can't really handle this. It's just too much, too fast, right? That's what's going on there. Now, what's the solution? Women can spend more time with female friends and also build that oxytocin. So it's like you can get 80% of your oxytocin from female bonding time, and you're going to benefit their oxytocin as well. So it's a win-win. And then you come home and you maybe get 10 to 20% of your oxytocin from your guy being a great, empathetic, supportive partner. And then he can be in a sustainable situation as well, because guys need a certain amount of oxytocin. It can bring down a little bit of stress. It can improve empathy, but it can also make him tired too much. That's why, post-coitus, guys will cuddle for a little bit, but then it's like, I got to get out of here. This is too much oxytocin. I got to go do something else. So jumping over to the guy situation, we need testosterone. Now, why is that? Guys, traditionally, we weren't hanging around the camp talking about our feelings. We were out hunting. And when you're stalking your prey, if you and I are talking about our feelings and what's going on in our relationships and the problem we've been having, that bear moose or whatever we're going after is going to hear us a mile away. We don't get to feed our tribe. They all starve and die. The tribe who tried doing this, they didn't survive. They're done. They didn't pass on their genes, right? So as guys, we are not geared to necessarily talk so much about what's going on. We look for a quick solution, and then we go through this cycle of rest and action. When we're resting, we're rebuilding our testosterone. When we have action, we're releasing our testosterone. So we build and release and build and release. And so that's why, guys, we have the man cave. That's where you go build your testosterone. The man cave is a testosterone factory. That's where it happens. Then so you're building it, and then you go do something. You problem solve. You go fix the toaster. You work on your car. You go out to work. You go out and conquer the world. You go do physical activity. Testosterone gets released, and you have this great cycle. So this is kind of the balance. And if men and women can empathize with each other on this and understand what the other person needs, and also what your own limitations are, to provide that for your other partner and help them find where they can seek it elsewhere if you can't provide all that's needed there, is so great.
That's such a great explanation. And I remember from medical school days, we had this like chart of hormones, and all hormones really come from the same initial structure. It's all made out of cholesterol. And it's true, if you have hormones going more in one direction, it steals all the precursors to hormones being produced in another direction. So you really got to manage what hormones are being produced and when. And like you said, a lot of it's cyclical too. Like you need to make testosterone, then use testosterone. If you don't, if you get stuck in the making phase or the using phase, you end up tired and grouchy. Or
it's like having a production line, right? Like if one stage of the production line is going full speed, but the next is like taking a nap, you're going to have a backup and a problem in the factory, and the boss is going to be pissed.
It's exactly like a production line, right?
And this makes so much sense for me, because this whole time I thought I was narcoleptic. When my girlfriend tries to talk to me and she needs my attention, and if she wants to argue, I literally pass out like immediately.
Right.
Like right instantly, I'm just gone. I'm out of the conversation. It does. It just drains me. I can't deal with it. And for her, it's the most frustrating thing on the planet.
She wants to build oxytocin with you.
Yeah. And I want to pass out. I do pass out. I just like fall right asleep, you know? And so would that be the explanation of what it is? I get this buildup of oxytocin. My brain just shuts off.
It's possible. It's everyone has such individual biology and chemistry and underlying issues that it's reasonable to suppose that could be a strong factor at play.
Got it. Yeah. Okay. So I feel better. At least I
especially
can say
depends on time of day. Like it'd be interesting to see if say it's earlier in the day rather than later when you're tired and you just need to go rebuild testosterone. If it's at a time when like you're feeling great and you're like strong and full of vitality, is it a bit easier for you to be a good listener and talk about the things?
Yeah, I'd say so. I'd say so. These conversations typically end up a lot of times at night, because during the day I'm always working, I'm gone, I'm busy. So at night is the opportunity to get together and talk if these things are going to come up. But again, for me, it's like it's an off.
That's when you want to go to the man cave, because you need to rebuild testosterone. You've been out releasing it all day, doing your thing, and you need to go rebuild. One thing that can be very effective is work out a system in your relationship where you come home and you're allowed to go into your man cave, whatever format that may take, as long as you need, and then you come out. And if she allows you to do that, likely you will come out a much better man, ready to listen. Once you've had time to go rebuild.
Got it. I'm gonna take this strategy home and try it. I like that there's a scientific explanation to it all.
But I also love how you said that, women need certain levels of oxytocin. They can only get 20% maybe from the relationship. Having that social bonding experience, it's so important for women. And for women that are not feeling great and they're not feeling happy and energetic, maybe they need to get out and do some more social things, right? Maybe they need to...
In my relationship with Ana Blanca, we have what we call Female Fridays. Where on Fridays we or at least once a week, if not on a Friday, but often on Fridays, she goes and spends time with female friends. And gets that female bonding time in. And because we work together, we live together, we do so much together, but we also make sure that she doesn't become entirely reliant on me. I give as much as I can, but we want this to be sustainable for many, 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 many years. So we make sure that it doesn't entirely have to come from me, that there's other sources as well.
That's amazing. So I love that explanation. And I think there's more that we can unpack over there, but I wanted to also talk about stress in your adrenal glands and your thyroid gland, because people don't realize all your hormones and all your glands are intimately connected to each other. And levels of thyroid affect your sex hormone levels and affect your stress hormone levels as well. So tell me a little bit about the thyroid gland and how that affects your day-to-day activities and how you can manage that.
Yeah, so the thyroid, not many people actually even know where it is. It's located right around your throat area, at the base of your throat on either side. It's kind of like a butterfly shape. And it is one of the first components of your hormone endocrine system to suffer from stress. It's very sensitive to stress. And the challenging thing with the thyroid is many people get their thyroid tested and their doctors will say, oh, your T3 or your T4, whichever they're looking at, looks fine. You're okay. Now, their range for what is acceptable in mainstream medicine is very wide, as well as they don't really run all the tests. You really have to look at T3, T4, reverse T3 uptake, TSH, thyroid antibodies in case somebody might have Hashimoto's. There's so many directions in which things can go wrong, and it's only really being looked at by most doctors from one angle, and then with a very wide acceptable range of where it can be.
Most doctors just check a TSH level and they're done. And I used to do thyroid surgery.
Oh, wow.
And I would get, I've removed hundreds of thyroid glands in my time, believe it or not. Yeah. And what I found a lot of times is to get a TSH, they refer them to a surgeon for a problem. And so we end up getting all those lab tests, which are so important. I would say 20 to 30% of people have a thyroid disorder that's undiagnosed because of the amount of stress that we have in our lives now. And one of the tests we do at Next Health is a full thyroid panel, so we can diagnose Hashimoto's, so we can diagnose. And you're absolutely right about those reference ranges. Unfortunately, labs give you a reference range that is so wide, and those are really not optimal ranges. You want to get optimized, not just be barely functional normal, And so
just because you can barely drag yourself out of bed in the morning and you got brain fog and you're gaining weight, that's not okay.
Exactly.
You got to do something about that.
Right. And what you said before too about, this whack-a-mole with symptoms and treatments, right? I can't tell you how many thyroid patients we saw that were given Ambien because they couldn't sleep. And they had a million other symptoms, but all they were taking was Ambien for the sleep issue. And then you check their thyroids and you find out that the thyroid is off completely, and you end up helping their brain fog, their hair, their skin, their sleep, all of it. They never
plays
needed
out in
Ambien.
so many different ways when you have thyroid problems. And I've experienced the same thing just being in the health world as well. People will have undiagnosed thyroid problems for 10, 15, 20 years, finally get to a doctor who tells it like it is, and suddenly all these problems are magically disappearing. What a miracle.
And how easy is it to correct a thyroid issue?
Well, there's different approaches, right? There's given depending on the intensity of the situation, there's a lot of natural things you can do. There's also you can take thyroid glandulars as supplements when the problem gets a little more extreme, and that will probably be the fastest way to get things going right away because you're actually getting the thyroid hormone. But if we look at it from like a nutritional herbal perspective, there's lots of things you can do. Taking iodine is a great one, like a nascent iodine, where you just put the drops in the water and shoot it down real fast. Or you can also, or/and you can get it from kelp as well. One of my favorites is Modafelon. It's this great, really powerful brown kelp extract that is you can take anywhere like up to like 12 capsules a day. It's super nutrient dense. And then you can get into herbs as well. Ashwagandha is one of my favorites for the thyroid and for stress and for overall hormone support. And it's such a fast growing herb that it's one of the cheapest herbs out there that you can take. So if you are alive and you don't take ashwagandha, you don't know what you're missing out on. It's like, it's so good in so many different directions. You know, for guys, even if you're not caring about your hormones, even if you don't care that it improves your testosterone, it's going to help you build more muscle when you're working out and burn more fat. So it's such a great herb.
Is that in one of your chocolates?
Yeah, we do it in quite a few actually. So we do it in our energy chocolate and our tranquility chocolate because it improves your natural energy production, but also is calming at the same time. It brings down the stress. And then also in our focus chocolate, because they've actually shown that in your brain, when you've had mercury toxicity and the dendrites, kind of like these tree branches in your brain have died off, that ashwagandha can actually help them grow back. It's amazing stuff for the brain and for focus and cognitive health.
You know, the iodine problem you mentioned is interesting because we made iodized salt so that we would get enough iodine in our diet because we weren't having enough way back when that was mandated. And now we're all told to eat a low salt diet, right? So people are avoiding salt. So if you don't get enough iodine, you don't have the precursors you need to make the thyroid hormones.
Exactly. And you know, other important minerals, also selenium. So you can go with that in supplement form or Brazil nuts, depending on your preference. B vitamins are really important. Probiotics, actually, if you take really good probiotics, it can have a meaningful impact on your T3 levels. So there's lots of things you can do to be supporting this.
Wow, that's amazing. So, okay, we talked a little bit about herbs, and this is where I want to spend a lot of time with you.
Great. It's my biggest area of passion.
Yeah, you know so much, and you just thrown a bunch out there. And we'll do show notes for everyone listening, so we can get a nice list based on your symptoms you're experiencing and what herbs would be the best. But let's talk about the adaptogens first. Could you define adaptogen and then talk about some of your favorite herbs in that category?
Yeah, absolutely. So adaptogens basically work on the nervous system in the sense that they improve our resilience to all forms of stress. So the term was originally coined by a Russian gentleman, and the kind of the first adaptogen that he was really identifying was Siberian ginseng. There's many adaptogens around the world, and these essentially increase your ability to deal with all the stuff we're dealing with in the modern world. And they work on the immunity, they work on the nervous system, and basically anything that would cause you to have a stress response, you're going to still be able to respond as needed, but with less, say, extensive cortisol secretion, right? So it's bringing down your stress levels, allowing you to be higher performing and adapt more easily. And then at the same time, because your stress is not as high, then this cascade of good effects happens because everything in your body works better when you have less stress, especially your hormones.
So an adaptogen is basically anything that causes that specifically, or is it
it's usually referring to herbs,
Okay.
but I suppose some supplements could be said to have adaptogenic properties. Like if you were looking at something like magnesium, especially in the form of magnesium L-threonate, that really absorbs into the brain. So I think that could be considered like an adaptogenic supplement in a sense. But generally, it's referring to herbal compounds.
Got it.
Yeah.
And do you take adaptogens on a daily basis? Like, what's your adaptogen regimen? And do you take like extra ones when you're more stressed, or how do you manage this?
Absolutely, yeah. So you mix it up, and a lot depends on what's going on in your life and what your plans for that day are. Some of my favorite go-tos on a daily basis would be cordyceps, astragalus. Those are kind of like my top go-to
Cordyceps
herbs.
mushrooms?
Yeah, cordyceps is a mushroom and astragalus is a root. Both are chi tonics, and cordyceps is also a jing tonic, so it's supporting the kidney adrenal energy. And cordyceps actually improves your oxygen utilization. So from what you breathe, more oxygen is making it to where it needs to go. So it improves energy and endurance. And astragalus is one of the top chi tonics in the Chinese system. So for moment-to-moment energy, vitality, cognitive function, immune system function, it's fantastic.
kind of imagine you like in your kitchen or your bar, and you have like all these like jars full of herbs.
That's
and
exactly
you're
what it's like.
picking out what you.
And
is
then,
that what it's
so
like?
those
Really?
are like there's like my go-to, and then we got all the containers with all the different herbs. You know, having a chocolate company where we use these herbs, we're importing them, you know, by the 20-kilo container from you know, whether it's China or India or the different areas that we're bringing them in from. And so that's one of the kind of the great benefits of doing what we do is that we got just like unlimited supply of all the best herbs at home.
It's like
So
you
can really
built your
enjoy it.
own dream environment there.
Absolutely. If the dream as a kid was like I want to have unlimited chocolate to eat, got that one. The dream as a slightly more mature adult is I want an unlimited amount of all the best tonic herbs. Well, I scored that one too. So things are working out all right.
Amazing.
That's awesome. So for us normal people, sorry, not that you're not normal,
No,
but that don't have like vats of herbs all over the place, what's the best way for us to get our, you know, our adaptogens
get
in
'em?
on a daily basis? What do you?
So it depends what way is going to be the easiest for you. Ron Teagarden, who was responsible for introducing the tonic herb concept to America in large part back in the 70s, his number one rule of tonic herbalism is compliance. The herbs you don't take aren't going to do anything for you. So if I tell you, oh, the best way to take this one is just to take the powder and pop it into your mouth and just like swish the powder around in your mouth, but you find that like totally gross and disgusting and unpalatable, you're not going to do it on a daily basis, right? If I tell you, oh, take a tincture of this reishi because it's going to have an immediate stress reduction effect, but the bitter is too strong for you, you're not going to do it every day. If you're willing to do, if capsules are easier for you to do every day because you don't have to taste it, great, do the capsules. If you can't swallow capsules, do the tincture because, you know, everybody's got different issues and different things that's going to work better for them. So most importantly, figure out the format that is most amenable to you that you're most likely to do every day, because I don't care how potent a format of taking something is. If you hate it and you're not going to take it, you're not going to get the benefits.
Definitely. And so I've been exploring with some nootropics lately.
Yeah.
And I would love to hear, do you have any ideas of different herbs or tonics that would have the best cognitive impacts?
Absolutely. Yeah. So my favorites there, we mentioned ashwagandha earlier, is really nice.
Ashwagandha is good for everything.
You do it for everything. Just take it and let your life sort itself out.
That's like the Windex of herbs.
There you go. Exactly. And then lion's mane mushroom is another one of my favorites. It's great for long-term cognitive health as well as immediate focus and clarity. Then you have Siberian ginseng. We mentioned it was one of like the first herb to be coined an adaptogen. Great for focus and also energy production. Because when we talk about energy, it's not just physical energy. Your brain uses so much of your body's energetic production, and you have to run the mitochondria in your brain and to get that focus going. And even in your eyes, for example, your eyes get tired from doing lots of work. You need more mitochondrial energy production there. So those are some of my favorites as far as herbal nootropics. Rhodiola is another great one. Mm-hmm. We mentioned a minute ago the company Dragon Herbs. They make a pre-made tonic called Tibetan Magic. And this is a formulation that comes in a liquid pouch, and you just mix it with like some hot water. And the main herb in there is Rhodiola sacra, special Tibetan variety of rhodiola. And you drink this, and it's like if you've seen the movie Limitless, where the guy's eyes change color and just like goes into the zone. It's like that. It turns the mind on in a way like nothing else I've ever experienced.
That's what I want. So we can get it from there. That he actually has that kind of.
Yeah.
put
So you
together.
buy it. It comes in a pre-made like pouch. You cut open the pouch with the scissors. It's like 4 to 6 servings in the pouch, which I take to mean 1 to 2 servings because why not? So you pour it. You pour half of it out into a cup. Pour the rest into a jar for the next time, or split it into a couple servings. It depends. If you're real sensitive to stuff, start with a smaller amount. Play it safe. You don't want to overwhelm your system. And then you just mix a little bit of hot water with it and drink that, and just like your eyes open up. Your brain turns on. And what rhodiola is actually doing is it improves blood flow and oxygen flow to the brain.
That's amazing. Yeah, I think a lot of the nootropic supplements have all the herbs that you mentioned in it.
Very commonly, yeah.
There's this one called Qualia that has hundreds of these herbs and also actual nootropics in it as well, all mixed together.
Right.
But my theory is it's probably safer to do some of this with herbs that are natural rather than taking meds for like ADD or some of the stuff that people
my take as well.
right?
And even when it comes to, like, I'm not opposed to some of the more chemical style nootropics that are out there, but I will always have a preference for the herbs because it's not just one compound that you've synthesized and are taking in. it's a whole host of compounds with their naturally occurring biological cofactors that nature has kind of evolved to be there with them. And there's a sense of a highly functional, some might say an intelligent design to these things, whether it's come through evolution or whatever theory you have. And I just feel like it's always going to be safer because as much as we think we understand the chemistry of the brain to be able to take individual compounds and plug them in, there's probably more going on there than we'll realize. We'll probably look back in 30 years and say, whoa, there's a lot more going on in the brain than we thought.
It's kind of like, a lot of people think that marijuana is just THC and CBD in whatever ratio, but there's a million other chemicals in that plant that make it do what it does, right? It's the same thing with herbs. There's thousands, millions of chemicals in there that give it its potency and its powers. And we're never going to figure all that out. Whereas a medication, or pharmaceutical is just one chemical.
Right.
And, like you said, nature does a much better job of being a biological factory than a laboratory can.
Sure does. Yeah.
And what's your opinion on marijuana and CBD?
Depends on the individual. I am personally more excited about CBD than marijuana as a whole. Of course, it depends what form you're taking it in. Probably smoking things is never the best way to do it. If people are using medicinal cannabis for certain major diseases, that's very interesting. For things like seizures that have been so well documented and how effective it is, and also life-threatening diseases, amazing. That's like, what a blessing to be able to have that. And that finally it's becoming more accepted and available without having to worry about going to jail because you're trying to stop your kid from having seizures. I mean, geez. CBD is more exciting to me for use on a daily basis because it doesn't slow you down. It has such a great neuroprotective effect. Of course, as anything that is in its early stages, you really got to hunt around for the quality because when something is suddenly becoming hot, everybody kind of jumps on the bandwagon. So you want to find one that doesn't use, if possible, any solvents in the extraction of the CBD because the last thing you want is like hexane and methane coming in with your CBD that you're taking for nervous system health, and it's just going to end up giving you a headache.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's switch gears a little bit, talk about our toxic environment and talk about herbs. I mean, I use herbs as a mainstay for detoxifying whenever I need to. But tell me a little bit about what are the most common toxins that we encounter in society now? I know there are millions of them, but some of the main ones we need to think about. And what herbs we can use to address the buildup of these toxins in our bodies.
Right. Yeah. So toxins are coming from all angles. We live in a really crazy world these days. And your body does have certain natural detoxification abilities. And some people will say oh, your body knows how to detox. It can handle it all. You don't need to worry about it. Well, the thing is, our body did not evolve to deal with BPA. Our body did not evolve to deal with phthalates. Our body did not evolve to deal with glyphosate, which is probably the worst. But thank goodness that finally that is being understood and the makers of Roundup are being made to pay for it and hopefully create a kind of a different future for us.
I saw a big court case that somebody won for a few $100 million, right?
Yeah, $289 million, and apparently that's one of thousands of pending cases against them. And I know everybody was really freaking out when Bayer acquired Monsanto or when they did the merger because they thought, the two devils are coming together to be one big bad boy. But what if, and this is just me being optimistic, but what if Monsanto ends up being the poison pill that Bayer swallowed by accident and ends up taking them down?
Right.
What an amazing turn of events that would be. One can only hope, right? So there's all kinds of toxins out there. Now, the interesting thing is a lot of these are very similarly shaped to our hormone molecules. And they're actually things like glyphosate, things like BPA and phthalates. They're able to fit into our hormone receptors, and they act almost like estrogens, strangely enough. And what happens here is your hormone receptors, think of it like a game of musical chairs. There's a certain number of seats, and you got a lot of hormones, and now all these other foreign compounds, which are called xenoestrogens, competing for those seats. If you get some of these seats filled by xenoestrogens, your healthy hormones, your oxytocin, your testosterone, your beneficial natural estrogens, are not able to get in there and have the beneficial effect that they potentially otherwise could. So avoiding these is essential, and then figuring out how to detoxify them once they're in your system is also very important. It's ironic, phthalates, which I mentioned a minute ago, are often found in perfumes and colognes, which people use to be quote unquote sexy, right? Meanwhile, they're totally interfering with your sexual health. It's like nothing could be further from what you're actually trying to achieve. You might smell in a way that could attract somebody, but then when things don't work, like, congratulations, that didn't really work out for you. So what can we do about this, right? So there's definitely herbs that we can do to support healthy hormone production. For women, things like white peony and shatavari and ashwagandha. And then for men, you have, for example, hoshu wu and cordyceps, and also ashwagandha there as well, tongkat ali, tribulus. But it's still going to be hard if the seats are filled by these toxic estrogens. So we got to figure out how are we going to get them out of here. One of the greatest ways to do it is two kinds of supplements, and they're often combined together: indole 3-carbinol and DIM, diindole methane, that are great at detoxifying these unhealthy hormones. And that's, you can get it as a little capsule. You start taking it every day, and it can, within even like 30 days, it can do wonders for the hormone balance.
We use DIM actually for people that are on testosterone replacement to avert the conversion to estrogen, right? Exactly. Yeah. So it works really well for aromatization. So
yeah, and that's kind of like aromatization for people who haven't heard of it. Think of it like Star Wars when Anakin Skywalker becomes Darth Vader. It's a good, strong guy going over to the dark side. It's when we have this enzyme called aromatase, which we produce more and more of as we get older, and it turns the good hormones into bad hormones. It brings them over to the dark side. So like you mentioned, DIM, great aromatase inhibitor. And so that's another way we're ending up with bad hormones filling the seats, is that we have aromatization going on more and more as we age.
Speaking of aromas, I've been trying to figure out a natural deodorant situation, and it's really tough. And yeah, is there an ashwagandha deodorant, or is there a deodorant that's natural that actually works?
I have a couple solutions to that one. There's a great one that I've recently been using that the name of it is slipping my mind. I'm gonna have to get back to you with this, and perhaps you can put it in the show notes for people listening. It's a rub-on stick that is fantastic for eliminating the odors. There's more and more coming out that also incorporate like activated charcoal and things like that will help absorb some of the toxins and bad bacteria in your armpit environment. And then also adding in good essential oil-based beneficial aromas that, even if you are producing a bit of man scent, will kind of blend with that to create like a healthy man smell that can actually be quite attractive. I love Living Libations. They have a line called Poetic Pits. My favorite one is called the Radiant Earth Poetic Pits. It's just a little bottle of essential oil. You just do like one swipe under each armpit, and they're amazing smelling. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, I've not tried any of those yet, so I'm excited because I've been trying to figure. I feel like this is such a big problem that a lot of people have been facing, especially lately. It's been a pretty big topic. Finally, people have been talking about, how toxic deodorants are.
Absolutely.
The iron, everything else that's in there. And I know a lot of guys that are all trying to figure this out. They're all, on Amazon searching what the top natural deodorants are. And I just keep hearing about how, no one's succeeding. It's just hard to find one that works.
And same with makeup for women. I mean, women are having a really tough time finding makeup that's not just full of toxins. And so I think there's some companies that have been providing recommendations and actually putting all these together that you can go to one website, right?
Yeah, EWG, Skin Deep. They've got a great database where you can look up products and they tell you what toxic ingredients are in there. They rate it from 1 to 10 depending on the toxicity. You can also, if you get a clean product and you see one ingredient on the list, you say, I don't know about that one. You can search individual ingredients and they'll give you the toxicity profile. Right. So that can be really helpful. And there's lots of great companies now coming up to meet the demand. Like we said, you vote with your dollar. People are voting. And so you have companies like 100% Pure and companies like this that I just know because I see Ana Blanca using them that are creating really clean, healthy mineral, for example, like mineral-based makeups. So you can have the best of both worlds. It's possible.
EWG, for people who don't know, it's an environmental working group, and they have an incredible website about all the toxins in our environment. And they actually give you the dirty dozen of food, which is the foods that you should avoid that are the most toxin-laden. And also, like you said, they have apparently cosmeceuticals on there as well.
Yeah, so it's, you do go ewg.org/skin deep, I believe it is. And they've got this whole database. It's incredible.
That's great. I'd love to identify a couple of these items that we could probably even carry at Next Health. Yeah. Seeing which ones really work and then make them available.
Absolutely. So herbs to detoxify, you were mentioning the combination of two?
Oh, yeah. So we have the indole 3-carbinol and the DIM. And these are essentially extracts from cruciferous vegetables for detoxifying the bad hormones. And then, of course, you can go into more kind of heavy metal chelation things. Heavy metals are also a huge problem in our modern world. And there's a lot of like quote unquote heavy metal detox programs or diets or smoothies out there that are just disappointing. I mean, people get sucked into these, and will start drinking this or that smoothie or whatever. It's not going to be doing much. If you got real heavy metal issues, which so many people do, it's just not going to be enough to turn the tide in your favor. And so I'm a huge proponent of doing like DMSA chelation with a really great practitioner who knows how to carry you through the mobilization leading up to the chelation, do the chelation day with the oral DMSA, and then have days afterwards where you're rebuilding your healthy minerals and taking glutathione to make sure everything gets cleared out nicely. And then you do, multiple rounds of this to really have a meaningful impact on the heavy metals and test during it. So you actually see what's happening rather than just, oh yeah, I had my heavy metal detox smoothie today. Maybe I'll have one again next week.
Yeah, exactly. And testing is so important. We do a heavy metal panel in Next Health too.
Great.
And it's incredible. When I first had mine done, I mean, my mercury level is through the roof because I've been eating a ton of, large fish
over the
sushi,
years.
right?
Yeah.
Exactly. And so it's amazing how you don't know until you know,
Right.
by doing a test. And so blood testing, especially for heavy metal toxins, because the symptoms are kind of vague. You never really know.
There's so many ways in which they can play out. It's like thyroid problems, right? It can play out in so many ways. Nobody ever really identifies what's going on with you until one day you do, and you actually do the work to get it sorted out, and suddenly your problems start disappearing.
It's totally incredible.
Yeah.
You want to talk a little bit about male and female hormone optimization utilizing herbs? Like what can men do to
Absolutely.
boost their testosterone levels?
Yeah. So as we mentioned, we want to clear out the bad hormones, and then some of my favorites for boosting the testosterone are tribulus. Tongkat Ali is a great one. And then you have things like Polyrhacus ant, which is a big black Chinese mountain ant, highest natural source of zinc. Basically, if you look at the way ants work, they're like incredible strength, incredible endurance, very hardworking. You're kind of taking on that energy when you take this. It's very high in ATP. So you do this like before a workout and you are a beast.
Wow, you're like eating the ant's strength.
It's an extract that you're taking.
I thought it was actually from an ant. Well, it's from an ant, though?
It is, yeah. So they've done essentially a hot water extract of these big ants.
Got it.
And these ants eat ginseng, so they're like already on the next level.
Wow.
Yeah, it's from this one area in China that's like really amazing.
Where do we find these?
This is something you can get from Dragon Herbs. They have it like in tincture or capsule form. It's totally extracted, so there's no like legs floating around in the tincture or anything weird like that. There's no crunchy parts. Like it's all very, very easy to do.
If you were to find the ants alive and eat them that way, would you still get the benefits?
I'm sure you would. It's a bit more than I'm willing to bite off.
Literally.
But if you take a trip to China and want to go eat some ants, sweet. I'll go film it, and we'll make a great video for the Next Health YouTube channel.
Deal.
You get bitten by the ant and turn into Ant-Man. It's radioactive.
But yeah, so we've got that as a great supplement. And then ashwagandha we mentioned is great for helping to build the testosterone, decrease the stress. And you have also just general kidney adrenal supportive herbs like Hoshu Wu, Cistanche, Eucomia. These are some of the great Chinese, what they call Jing tonics, that are essentially recharging your core kidney adrenal energy. It's like your energy savings account. It's basically like your reserve batteries.
This is going to be the longest set of show notes ever written.
I was literally just thinking the same thing.
But I'm going to ask your help to like spell some of these too.
My pleasure. That's what I'm here for.
And what about the women who are listening? What can they do to support their hormonal balance?
So I would say my favorite two female hormone herbs are ashwagandha and shatavari. It's an Ayurvedic herb. It translates to she who has 1,000 husbands. Doesn't mean you got to deal with 1,000 guys, but it means you could if you needed to. It kind of just gives you that female power. And then gelatinized maca is another one. Men and women, actually, for this one. And gelatinized is because it's been heat processed and helps to break down some of the starches. Raw maca can have some benefits, but it's not as potent, and it can actually be difficult to digest, so it can cause some flatulence. And I always say it's cruel to give someone an aphrodisiac that causes flatulence. It's just a bad combination of things. And so then also for women, the thing to keep in mind is that they're losing blood every month, and that has to be replenished. You got to be able to rebuild that, especially if someone is vegan or vegetarian, as many women are these days, and they're not getting that heme iron from animal products. So a couple formulations that can be really beneficial for this. These are traditional Chinese formulas. One is called bupleurum and peony, and it has white peony in it. And then ginseng and longan. And you can also get longan fruit on its own and just snack on those. They're actually quite delicious.
What about for the postmenopausal woman?
Yeah, so It's an interesting stage to look at something like hormone replacement therapy because if things just aren't being produced anymore on their own. You can also look towards something like chase tree berry, deer antler, maca can still be supportive during that stage of life.
Fantastic. Those are great recommendations. I think, trying some natural hormone supplements along with increasing your exercise routine, getting good sleep, adequate nutrition, all those things.
Yeah, those basics are so essential, right?
Exactly.
The sleep, especially. Sleep and blood sugar, two really important ones that I want to make sure we touch on because blood sugar, I always say when you're in a relationship and your partner's blood sugar is getting low, make your number one priority in life to get that blood sugar back up because no one's going to be a good partner with low blood sugar. And what's going on there is when your blood sugar gets low, your body's going to start producing cortisol to keep you alive, keep you standing up, keep you from passing out. Because historically, if you passed out, you're easy prey for a bear or a lion, right? And it's not good for your longevity to be eaten alive. So when you're producing this cortisol, again, you're going to be more stressed. You're not going to be the best version of yourself, and you're not going to be producing all your other healthy hormones that you need to be for ultimate health. And at the same time, when you're not getting enough sleep, similar thing happens during the day. To keep you alive and from passing out, your body's going to produce cortisol. Similar situation. So it's really essential. And then you also want to make sure that you're getting a good amount of vitamin D3. That's the opposite side of the sleep equation, right? So vitamin D3 is essentially a hormone in the way it works in the body and kind of almost like a hormonal precursor and just supporting the whole system for hormone production. And you want to take a good form of vitamin K2 with it to make sure that your body treats the calcium right, that it's going to, you get more calcium going around because of vitamin D3. That's why it's so great for bone health. But if you're not taking K2, that calcium can end up in the wrong places instead of in your bones.
And, you mentioned with sleep as well. I think, maximizing your sleep environment, maximizing your sleep routines, and then getting all of that right first is fantastic. Do you have any herbs that specifically make you more tired? Any herbs you can recommend for those instead of using like melatonin, for example?
Yeah, absolutely. And the ones I'll mention are not necessarily sedatives. It's more that they just make you feel a bit more of internal peace and quiet the mind a bit. And for that reason, these are things that would also be okay to take during the day for stress. So we're looking at things like reishi mushroom here, ashwagandha, again, another one. Pearl powder is great, not just for beauty. It's really good for the skin and the liver, but also for its calming effect. Chrysanthemum as a tea is really nice. It brings down the heat and the fire of your whole day's activities. There's a Chinese herb called ziziphus, which is really nice for peaceful dreams. And I like taking magnesium L-threonate at nighttime. Also a really nice one because of the way it crosses the blood-brain barrier more effectively than most forms of magnesium. And yeah, those would be my awesome, best calming ones.
Yeah, and you mentioned a lot of times during our talk here, Chinese herbs and Ayurvedic medicine. I think it's important for everyone to know that this is not something new. I mean, this is based in thousands of years of Ayurvedic Indian medicine and Chinese medicine, and all of these things have been utilized for thousands and thousands of years. There's some great history behind this. My dad was an Ayurvedic doctor, a physician in India, and we had all these Ayurvedic herbs around all the time. And now it's finally great.
So your kitchen looks like the earlier version of what mine is now.
Exactly. So it's great to have some understanding into some of these and having it actually catch up with modern science and how we can relate herbs to our hormones. It's incredibly important.
Yeah, now to see all these studies happening more and more on these traditional herbs confirming what these traditional herbal systems have said for thousands of years is so great to see.
Fantastic. Great. Well, I think that's all we have time for today, Sage. This was an incredible talk, and you're
Thanks
just
so
an
much.
incredible wealth of knowledge. I feel like we can talk for like 4 more hours.
Well, one of these days we can do a round 2.
We'll probably break the internet with the number of show notes we'd had too.
I wonder if they have a character limit for the show notes.
So thank you so much for coming and joining us today. Once again, please feel free to come to Next Health at any time, all the listeners out there, and do some of the testing we talked about. Participate in some of the things we're talking about as far as herbs go to optimize your health. And we do have Addictive Wellness chocolate for sale. So please come by and try some of that great stuff out. It makes all these herbs extremely tasty. And you have tell us a little bit real quickly, just the different chocolates that you have available.
Yeah. So instead of doing different flavors of chocolate, we decided to go for different functions. So we use different herbal formulations in each one. So they taste similar, just a subtle flavor difference that you'll start to notice as you have them more and more from the different herbs. So we have energy, beauty, tranquility, focus, love, and recharge.
My favorite's recharge.
Recharge, yeah.
Delicious.
And that has all the best hormonal supporters in there. So that's
perfect.
a powerful one.
Great. Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Sage. We really appreciate your time.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.